Welcome to The Grounded Leader, Ayurvedic wellness for leaders who want to succeed from a place of balance. A podcast where ancient practices meet ambitious goals to help you operate with strength, clarity, and grounded intention. I'm your host, Shweta Vikram, an Ayurvedic doctor, trauma informed yoga teacher, award winning author, mindfulness coach, corporate wellness speaker, adjunct professor, and a lifelong student of what it really means to lead with clarity, purpose, and peace. Each week, we'll explore holistic wellness, how to excel in authentic leadership, and live with balance and purpose. Let's dive in. In this episode of The Grounded Leader, The Gratitude Advantage, Why Thankfulness Fuels Entrepreneurship, I'm thrilled to invite Laura Mignot, who leads and builds teams that create unbelievable experiences, tap into the culture, are fun and engaging, and convert for brands. You know what a running joke is? That Laura knows everybody. So she is always open to connecting with interesting people. Today, we dive into a powerful yet often overlooked force in business, gratitude. And to me, Laura is the queen of gratitude. She could be in the most chaotic, messy, difficult situation, but there's always a reflection in that moment, and she'll draw gratitude in that reflective moment. Sometimes makes me feel like, oh my God, why am I not doing that enough? And I say this because entrepreneurship is full of challenges. There's so many uncertainties, long hours, financial risks, and personal sacrifices. But gratitude shifts the lens from scarcity to abundance, from stress to resilience. In this conversation with Laura, we'll explore how cultivating gratitude doesn't just feel good, it directly impacts leadership, decision making, innovation, and even team culture. You'll hear stories from her, practical strategies, and some research backed insights on why gratitude is not a soft skill, but a critical ingredient for sustainable success. If you've ever wondered how to stay grounded while scaling, or how to lead with clarity and compassion without burning out, this conversation is for you. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Shweta. This is gonna be hilarious.
You are the queen of gratitude, and I have been looking forward to this conversation for such a long time because
Me too.
we've known each other for a decade now.
I think
And
it's more than a decade at
yeah,
this point.
probably. And I think one of the first things that I noticed about you, and that's what I mentioned at the start of the podcast, is no matter what's going on in your life, and we are at that stage of life where there is always enough drama going on. And in many ways, I'm not saying it's a rocket fuel because it's the wrong way to look at things, but it keeps us going. We used to drama at this stage of life, right? But somehow you always manage to find your center and share your gratitude practices and remind those around you. So what does gratitude mean for you within the context of entrepreneurship? Because everything is unpredictable.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where I think it's just important to acknowledge where we are and where we have and where we've gotten to when we're an entrepreneur. I think the biggest challenge we very often have is like, I haven't done anything. What? No. And it's like, yes, you have. You have made an impact. And so for me, I look back on a really interesting moment in my entrepreneurial journey, the first time, kind of on my second one at this point, maybe my third, I'm not sure. But I used to host these events that were very popular and for about 6 years. And every third Thursday of the month, people would come. It would be a networking event around marketing and tech. And all manner of really interesting folks would come in, and we deliberately made it a diverse roster of speakers so that whether you were a super marketer or just starting out, career change, or the best in the industry, we all had you all in the same room, and you could always connect with each other. And we thought about that community that we sort of just naturally built. But I never realized the impact of it until we'd stopped doing those events, and I went to another event about a year later. This woman came up to me, and she was one of my regulars who always used to come, and I always did the same thing: greet people, welcome them, make them feel like we're glad that they came to the event because I'm glad you did. And she says to me, I don't think you realize how important your events were. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I was going through the most terrible time. And at that point, I knew that every third Thursday I'd see you, and she'd learn it off a list of the kind of regulars. She always come and just spend. And I would know that at least for those 90 minutes, I'd be around good people and I would feel like everything was going to be okay. And it reminded me that we don't realize our impact as entrepreneurs and the things that we do and how we connect with each other. And I think that for me was sort of a sort of realization to me about how gratitude can actually work in business. That like the little things that you do, the fact that you hand write your thank you notes and when you do your online business, the fact that you welcome everyone into the event that you host, the fact that you send a follow-up thank you email when someone has tried out your product or went through a program that a class that you took. Like all of those little moments matter to people. And it gave me a sense of understanding that there's so much good you can put out in the world that it doesn't have to be big moments. Like small acts go a long, long way to building a successful career in entrepreneurship. And start remembering that like your impact is like a pebble and it ripples in ways that you have no idea. So why not come from a spirit of gratitude when you think about all those things?
I love so many things about what you just said, but a key takeaway is the self-worth aspect. I think as entrepreneurs, we don't see ourselves in certain light because, the way the world judges worthiness or, your productivity or success is through the paycheck. And yes, money matters. We've talked about it. But when you're just starting out, it takes a while. But when you have that impact, that's so much to be grateful for because that's what you said. It's the ripple effect. It starts as a pebble, but it creates that ripple. And I'm hearing a lot of self-worthiness connected to gratitude. So thank you for that. And I'm just wondering, Laura, for you, um, b- have you always been this person who's found gratitude, or there's been a moment, whether it was a celebration or an opportunity or a challenge, where you found gratitude was your best asset, and that transformed how you show up today?
I don't think I always had the word gratitude for it, but I think I was always aware of the gifts that were there.
Mm.
And so that I didn't see that as something to take for granted. And I kind of go way back to like my first night in America. So I came in when I was 3 from England, and as a hyperactive 3-year-old, I was running around in my grandmother's house because that's where my family and I were staying. And I ran and hit my head on my grandmother's glass coffee table.
Wow.
And that's why I have that scar here. And as a hyperactive 3-year-old, I didn't feel any pain. So I didn't cry. I just like crawled on my dad's lap and went to sleep. And my mom comes running down the stairs because she heard a big crash and sees my dad in blood and thinks something horrific has happened. Picks me up and then is like, wait, you're the one bleeding. Rush to the hospital. And so welcome to America, American healthcare. Delightful. In the early 80s. So and the thing that happened was you've met me, sweet. Obviously, I have eyesight. Um, uh, I can see. I most of the time wear contact lenses, but I also wear glasses because I have horrific vision. However, I can see. And when I think about the fact that on the first day in this country, I could have died,
Mm.
I could have been blinded, I could have been horrifically injured because glass. It's like that could hit an artery, it could like go right through my all manner of stuff. And I think from that moment on, I think I've always sort of had in the back of my head that like I'm supposed to be here.
Mm.
I'm supposed to do something important. I'm also even further back, I'm a preemie. I was born 6 weeks early. Lots of folks told my mom that I probably would not be like the smartest kid, who would be the kid who didn't read quickly enough and all this other fun stuff. And my mom's like, yeah, no, she was right because she made sure of it. But like I think many times I've sort of been underestimated, and I always have had this sense of like there is I don't want to say divine reason, but I think there's a reason that I'm here to do some really good things and not to be perfect, not to have never made a mistake, but to be here. But having that, rather traumatic experience as a child reminded me that, like, you know what? I could not be here. So why not take every day as a gift and try and do the best I can? Now, does that mean that every day is going to be splendorific and awesome? Absolutely not. There have been some dark as hell days. But I do think that inherently, as I've gotten older, the clarity around what that word is, and I think it is a sense of gratitude. It's
Mm.
kind of like when we were talking before this podcast. It's like a year ago right now, I woke up one morning with walking pneumonia, and I didn't have a cough. I wasn't sneezing. I didn't have shortness of breath. All I was doing was like had a fever and I couldn't eat. And it probably because it was right after the election. So, yeah, but it was a year ago. And it had been at that point had been like the most trying year of my life in terms of like job situations changing. I broke my ankle earlier in the year. And all these kind of interesting and challenging things that happened to me in 2024. And here we are sitting in 2025, still standing, no walking pneumonia, moving forward. So why wouldn't I have a spirit of gratitude? Why wouldn't I have like, yeah, eh, like there's a lot to be grateful for. And in small moments and big moments, and in those moments where it feels like the most hard, why not be grateful for that moment? I always look at it this way. Um, COVID happened 5 years ago, where we couldn't go outside, we couldn't hug a friend, we couldn't grieve. Um, to be here 5 years later, like take stock of how far you've all come. Like you went from a fear of constant like this could be it to like, oh, actually, you know what? I made it through that. I can pretty much make it through anything else. So let's not waste a moment of this time. Let's just try and figure it out and go and keep moving forward.
That's so beautiful. So sad, the memory of COVID, it's taught us so much, but that's also what we've lost. But you bring back such a good point. Until COVID happened, very often in my work, I would meet people, and when I would ask them about gratitude, most of them, a large majority would say, yeah, you feel grateful when you achieve something big, which means it could be, oh, got my first paycheck, my first promotion, got married, went to Paris, or whatever, got my first big bonus. Just being alive is something we just took for granted, and it's a privilege to be able to get old. The number of people who might not have realized until COVID hit, unfortunately. Um, yeah, and it's when people practice gratitude for small things rather than big things. Big things, sure, it's automatic reaction. Oh, thank you, God, right? Or thank you, universe, or thank you, whoever. But it's in the small things, the example that you share of your first day as a toddler in America. It tell me about this. Has that experience and your attitude towards gratitude? Oh, I was not trying to rhyme here, but I just did. But that's you and
Look,
I
geez,
together, are bound to
yeah,
happen.
it's bound to
Uh,
happen.
does gratitude or like practicing gratitude impact risk taking in business, decision making? Does it make you more fearless?
I think it allows me to be aware that there's good out there and
Mm,
it will come back in some way, shape, or form. Because I always use this really simple example when people ask, like, Laura, how come you know everybody? Why is it that you're chill with 99% of people you know? And I was like, well, I have three monikers I kind of hold on to. It's like, be curious, be kind, and be chill. And that is literally how you can inhabit a spirit of gratitude because only people who come from a place of gratitude can be curious.
mm,
Because, I think if you're not curious, then you're not going to be grateful for those small, weird moments where you randomly catch up with someone and you hear about what they're up to, and you're like, okay, girl, go ahead, girl. And then you won't be kind because, like, oh, girl, your shoes are tongue-tied. And you won't be chill, like, girl, I wasn't really okay. We're gonna let that go. All underneath all of that starts with a spirit of gratitude, a spirit of empathy, and understanding that like not everything is your fault, not everything you are responsible for, and not everything is dark clouds and heaviness forever. when you're an entrepreneur, you have extremely dark days. And I think we talked about like how I'm trying to do this version of entrepreneurship different than the last time I did it. Um, because we had a lot of different challenges. And the thing that am, very much honed in on is like, how can I make things more manageable? How can I have now that I've learned, how can I understand that? And that biggest shift has been, yeah, okay, well, that was weird. Learn something. Or, cool, that was totally weird. I would never have expected that, but all right, great. So like, oh, that's awesome. I'm learning something from this as well. But it comes from that undergirding of curiosity and just trying the best you can every single day. And you're gonna fail as many times as you're gonna make it awesome. But the key is if you just keep going. But if it comes from a place where it's like, I'm not trying to like hoard all of this stuff, but you're like actually give, give, give. And again, it can literally be like, someone would love to hear you say, that's a good idea. Or yeah, yes, you can do this. Why wouldn't you do this? I can't tell you the number. I mean, I think we've talked about this. The number of female founder I've met who come from previous careers where like they were like queen of everything. And they're like, oh yeah, I did this little thing. I was ahead of blah blah blah. I'm like, why do you not start there? And when by me saying it to them, they're like, you know what? I have a little extra pep in my step. I think I'm gonna start saying that. See? Simple stuff where it's just like giving a good kind word to someone, and reminding them how good they are and how they've achieved goes a long way in, having this spirit of gratitude and not thinking everything is a competition. And I think as women, sometimes there is this weird thing about being in competition. I'm like, with who? Me? Myself? No. Like, what's the point? Life's too short. Like again, one thing that a pandemic teaches you that like life is unbelievably short. Like during the pandemic, weirdly after the pandemic, I lost a lot of friends and family in a very short window of time. And it reminded me again of like life is short. You never know. And so it is better to at least try and live a life of being aware and grateful for the moments you have and what you have, because people are not here to see that. So why wouldn't we?
I That's so true. And how quickly we forget these lessons. Because for a lot of people, like, what pandemic? Because we don't know what the new normal and when it started. Every day feels like a new normal. And when you reflect back, so easy to forget that, oh, world was very different in 2020, March of 2020. You and I met at an event, and 3 days later, New York went into shutdowns. Like, and so, in hearing you say these beautiful perspectives and aspects of gratitude, it almost feels like it shapes a company's culture. It shapes the relationships that we have, not just personal, but also with teams, clients, and partners. It can shape the relationship that we have with creativity or even problem solving because like you shared, Laura, the women that you know, and you've said this to me as well. I was sharing with you that I was speaking at this conference and all these people were so great and they were like, and you were like, Shweta, they were your peers. I was like, oh, thank you. I was placing them on a pedestal, which is great because much like you, that competition, yeah, not my area of interest. But I forgot to see myself through the same lenses I was seeing others, and I feel like when you practice gratitude and it adds to the self-worth, then it adds to problem solving, it adds to creativity, and it leads to really building these very nurturing relationships. It almost feels like, Laura, this comes very naturally to you, or you worked very hard and it sounds very seamless. Can you suggest like few gratitude practices entrepreneurs can build into their daily routines? Because when you talk to people about gratitude, they're like, yeah, thank you. But like, I don't know where to begin. So, what has worked for you, and if you have any suggestions?
It's all manner of stuff. I remember for a time I was like doing a little gratitude journal like every day. I would write down three things I'm grateful for. And like I did it for a couple of years. And interestingly enough, I found out I stopped doing it this year.
Hmm.
And I don't think because I ran out of things to be grateful for. But I think I got to a point where it's like I know that I'm grateful. Just in general, I am grateful to be here. I am grateful for my health. I am grateful for my sanity in a world where things were so unpredictable and so challenging, especially for folks' mental health. Especially when you're an entrepreneur, because like that's the biggest challenge. And so I think the first thing that an entrepreneur can do is be grateful because you're here doing this. Start with that. And
Mm,
if it is easier for you to write it down, maybe part of the reason I don't have to write it down anymore is because I convinced myself by writing it for all those years. 'Cause I think it was sometime around COVID I started doing the, 'cause I was like, well, all right, sure. So if it helps to write down three things that you're grateful for in the morning or in the evening or in the middle of the day, like I used to have it in my notes app on my phone. That might be, I mean, it might be just a way to kind of kick your morning off by doing that. That's a thing to do. If you have any sort of spiritual practice, like prayer works as well. If there is a thing that when you see a clock that says 11:11 or triple A's and something like that, and you're like, you know what? I'm here. But I think, when you're an entrepreneur, you very often are so deeply heavy-hearted about so many things because, like, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to make this all happen? And very often it's just a matter of realizing you get to do this. And especially for female entrepreneurs. Like I was reminding some folks the other day when we were talking about the state of the world, and I was like, well, 100 years ago, we all couldn't be hanging out here together.
mm.
Like that was again, 100 years. If you look at history, 100 years ago, a group of multiracial women couldn't be hanging out in a space I paid with a credit card for. Like, and so so realize where you are at this moment and understand that it's pretty awesome that you're here and you're able to do this. Like if you're here right now in this particular place in, say, the United States and able to do this, but for whatever universe, God that you believe in, you could be somewhere else where this life would not even be possible. The opportunity to do this would not even be possible. So why shouldn't I be grateful for that moment? And from there, look at the things that you've been able to accomplish. Very often entrepreneurs are coming from a different career where they built something, and now through very often no fault of their own, they're out trying to do something new. But you built something before. You didn't wake up yesterday and become an entrepreneur. Like you had something. You are someone. You're not defined by your title. Like you're defined by the relationships that you built. People know who you are and understanding that that's a really good place to be. Because again, you have gifts that you have not even tapped into yet, but you will. And a self-belief that, yeah, this is wackadoo, but 100 years ago, I couldn't even exist. I think that's probably a good way to kind of start it, to think about it.
This is such a unique take on gratitude. I'd never thought about it, Laura. And the reason I say that is, coming from that meditation, mindfulness, Ayurvedic background, I think about more bodily functions like, oh, I was able to sleep. I'm grateful. I'm able to eat because I've been sick. I've been in the ER. I almost died. So I'm thinking of gratitude from that angle. But the fact that you just said and gave me chills when you said that, and I was like, say it again, say it five more times. The fact that, as women, we didn't have access to credit cards, or you couldn't show up to certain spaces, or you couldn't be with your tribe and, you know, eating dinner outside. Like, thank you for that. Because I'm thinking when you say that, this also, this aspect of gratitude also adds to resilience in your business, the long-term success, right? Because you're just thinking, hey, if 100 years ago this couldn't be done, this is what I'm doing today. Who's to say 10 years from now I couldn't be doing whatever one, two, three goals that I have?
Of course. Well, if you think about you and I went to that event in March of 2020, and remember you had gotten that cool little jacket, and we did a little bonfire dance, and like, if you had told us 5 years later that I'd be on your podcast, you'd be like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. But
Take away all the stuff. Like, what is it right now? And then think about the fact that here are two multiracial immigrant women on a podcast. Podcast and it would have been the radio 100 years ago, right?
Right.
Talking about great gratitude, not about like here, how to be a happy homemaker, or like, wear like, those big scary Kremlin garter things. No, we're like in jeans and sweats and doing what we need to do. I'm in a co-working space. You're at home. Like a home that you have, that you own.
Right.
Uh, so I think very often the belief of what gratitude looks like is, again, it has to be big, but it starts with your very existence right now. Like that is the biggest piece of gratitude that I said I wouldn't have thought about it that way unless having gone through all the trials and tribulations over the last 10, 15 years of being an entrepreneur, being in corporate, being back an entrepreneur. But I'm very aware of that because I see it and I realize it. And I think once you start with that little bucket of like your very existence right now is an act of resistance against anything else that's out there. Because again, 100 years ago, not possible. And 5 years from now, who knows what's possible. But right now, right here, yeah, I'm happy to be here. And why not? Like, go for it. It's like you have nothing to lose. We carry a computer in our hands. That computer has more power than what put people on the moon in 1969, which is, under 70 years ago. And now there's this thing that basically can transmit to the world anything you want to talk about. Like, uh, so why not be grateful for like, okay, I live at this time. I'm an entrepreneur. Think about this. I'm an entrepreneur in 2025 versus 2010 versus the year 2000 versus 1995. Think about it in those terms, like 35, even 35 years ago, which is 1995. Like what? Like,
I
think about it.
I just
That's
absolutely love what you've said right now because I think very often as entrepreneurs, we dissociate. When we're thinking of what should I be grateful for in our business, because everyone starts with, I want to make $1 billion. We forget it takes years to even earn those $2. And especially for those of us, including you and I, who come from corporate backgrounds and we have that, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. It's very hard to adapt. And what I'm loving about what you just reminded, even me, Laura, because I think sometimes I don't struggle with the bigger aspects of gratitude, not the vacation, bigger aspects like the health, the family, the friends, the mental well-being. I don't take that for granted. I work in the mental health space. I know how many people are navigating different challenges. But I never looked at entrepreneurship from this angle, from the role of just being a woman, the role of the space of being in the space of feminism. And I don't mean like in a big, broad picture, just like I'm a woman, I'm here, I'm with other women. I actually own a business in a world which maybe my mother and my grandma weren't allowed to leave the house to even go to the bank. And I think, and that's how I mean dissociation, where we don't even realize how disconnected sometimes we are from gratitude as entrepreneurs, and to sort of get back on our track or to heal from those setbacks or failures or to stay grounded and to focus on what success and resilience look like. I think this is the page from your journal I want people to hear over and over again. Like to be in this time, to be in this moment, to really appreciate and navigate. Oh, this is 2025, even 20 years ago, we weren't here. It was a very different world for entrepreneurs, for women, and in many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's funny how technology changes so much. But the humanity piece is just still there. It's like, technology has made things a lot easier, but ultimately, what does everything still come down to? The relationships that you build. Now, do the technological tools make that a little bit easier? Yes and no. But it still comes down to people and having people in your life and not assuaging that like, well, I can't talk to them about what I do, or I can't talk to them about what I do, versus this is what I do. Like there's no, I think, when we were first coming up, it was like, oh, what is work-life balance? And then it was just like, okay. And I would just say just life. Like remove the word balance from here. You're just going to live your life, and it's going to be challenging. It's going to be horrifying, but it'll also be uplifting and surprising. But it starts with realizing that we get to live this life in 2025, not in 2000, not in 1980, not in 1900. Like you watch The Gilded Age in the 1800s. Like, I think, like, again, if you think of the show Gilded Age, and like that show is set, I think, what, in the late 1800s, and what women have to do in order to sort of have their own agency. And then you think about that right now. It's like if a woman wants to start a business tomorrow, she goes online and makes a website. Done. That is something to be eminently grateful for. Because again, even 20 years ago, to set up an LLC took filing paperwork and doing the things. And if it's Delaware, it's this. If it's New York, it's this. And maybe thousands of dollars and posting an ad somewhere. Now it's like, da, 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 done.
And now, because of AI, I have a friend who was like, and I'm not recommending this to anyone, so just take it with a pinch of salt. She was like, I can't afford a lawyer right now, but I really need to figure out things. And AI helped her figure that out because she had to prioritize where her money was going. Firstly, as a woman, she's able to decide where her money is going. So
It's
much
her
more
checking
grateful.
account. Yeah.
And I didn't even think about it. So thank you so much, Laura. Absolutely loved having this conversation with you. And like I said, into the new year, into the holiday season, and into the future, I'm going to borrow this page from your journal of gratitude, which really helps us stay grounded in the present moment. Not like it's not just the mind body, but it's being in the moment in your entrepreneurship, all things good and ugly. Because you know what? At least you get to be an entrepreneur. You get to follow your dreams. And not everybody can say that, not because they're lacking something. It's a gift to be able to do what we do. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Samantha. I mean, you're an absolute gift. So I'm delighted to come join you on this podcast today.
Thank you for tuning in into today's episode of The Grounded Leader with Laura Minio. Didn't I tell you you're going to love this conversation? And I hope this conversation with Laura, especially the last thing that she said, so many golden nuggets, but how to reframe gratitude as an entrepreneur. It's just not a nice to have. It's a powerful strategy for navigating entrepreneurship with clarity, resilience, and heart. If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps others, which is leaders, entrepreneurs, and anybody like you discover the show. Share this episode featuring Laura Minio with a friend, a colleague, or team member who could use a reminder of gratitude's impact on business and leadership. Until next time, stay grounded, stay grateful, and keep leading with intention.